GNX. 3 letters are the title of the new Kendrick Lamar album, and I would argue that there are 3 different Kendrick Lamars on this album. Kendrick the car, Kendrick the prophet, Kendrick the rapper. Let's get into my analysis. Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show, hosted by French Professor, who's going to start with the car. GNX. People always say, what the hell does that mean? Well, I'm going to explain it.
All right, before I let Professor Sky get into it, this is Professor Sky. This is my guy when it comes to reviews. One of my guys. Now, you know Justin Hunt is my guy. Shout out to Justin Hunt. Salute the company man. Let's make a comparison real quick. 1994, 2024. Rappers from 1994, rappers from 2024. A whole bunch. If you put them on a scale, 94 on this side, 2024 on this side. 94 is going to be way down there as far as storytelling, intelligence, just the intellect, overall intellect, the clever hooks, the rhyme schemes, writing a beat, all of that stuff. 94 is way 2004 is way up here. 94 outweighs them by far. Okay. Kendrick Lamar and a few others, but Kendrick Lamar by far, he's carrying the torch for all the younger generation rappers as far as putting subliminal messages and stories and things that you need to listen to a couple times to really get the little innuendos that you got to listen to. I can listen to a song from Eric B. and Rakim's Paid in Full that came out in 1986 right now and hear something that I never got in almost 40 years, 38 years. That song, that record's been out. I can listen to I Ain't No Joke, whatever the song is on that whole album and get something that Rakim wrote in a clever little sneaky way that I didn't get back then that I can get now. That's called compacting as much of you and your intelligence inside an album as you can get. Kendrick Lamar did that on this album. Anyways, let's get back into it.
I've seen a lot of people online saying, oh, Generation X. Yeah, that sort of works, except for the fact that he is like the opposite of a Generation X rapper. He was born in 1987. Gen X ended in 1980. That doesn't work at all. No, let's take him at his word. If he's sitting in front of a Buick Grand National GNX, then we should assume that that's what he means by GNX. But a car is not just a car. A car is never a car. Certainly not if it's what you're naming your album after. Certainly not in Kendrick's oeuvre with this famous minivan, right? So, right off, all over the album, this car is mentioned. I think its best example is in TV Off. All I ever wanted was a black Grand National, right? So all he ever wanted was that. So what does it mean? What does this car mean? It's an exclusive car, it's a powerful car, it's a surprising car, and it's a car for those that know cars. Now listen, you can go out there and you can watch a documentary called Black Air, the Buick Grand National documentary by Andrew Filippone Jr. Filippone? I don't know. I'll include a link to it in the description, and that's what I watched to understand this better. And it's a fascinating story. The story of the Buick Grand National is actually very cool for a car story because it's a GM car, General Motors. The same people who make Pontiacs, same people who make Chevrolet, make GM cars. But they're known for muscle cars. Like the Corvette or whatever, Firebirds, all that, right? But that's not what Buick's known for. Buicks were not known for that. As a matter of fact, the documentary explains that before the Grand National, their slogan, Buick's slogan was substantial, distinctive, powerful, and mature.
Boring.
That was what they called themselves. And then they made this absolutely insano fast car called the Grand National that was literally faster than a Ferrari. It was, and boxy as hell, like a weird looking, odd, angular mess of a car.
So he's leading up to something right there. He said they made this insanely fast car that was boxy. It was, he said, legit faster than a Ferrari. I think he said Ferrari. And he's going to go into explain a little bit more on that a little bit later on. But he's leading up to something. He's making a comparison to Kendrick in the car. So y'all just listen up, man. He's on to something. He's on to something big time.
In the documentary, they referred to it as a tennis champion wearing a tuxedo. But let's not get lost here by talking about the Buick Grand National, because that's not what this is actually about. There's lots of Buick Grand Nationals. There's only 547 GNX. You see, the Grand National was the last of a dying breed. It was made in a time where the car industry was changing. And one of the things that was changing was performance. Performance was going away in favor of efficiency, in favor of sellability, in favor of practicality. And one of the ways that manifested itself was moving away from rear-wheel drive. Now, you've probably never driven a rear-wheel drive car.
I have.
Okay, unless you're rich, okay? Rear-wheel drive is very different than front-wheel drive. Think about it. When you do front-wheel drive, the front wheels pull you along. You're like a little baby being dragged. You know, you're like a little tiny baby being dragged in like a little radio flyer wagon. And you're like, oh, thank you, Mommy. Can I put up cruise control? You know, can I have drive assist? I want to go nappy while driving. Right? That's where we're going. That's where cars are going. But rear-wheel drive, you are pushed from the back, and you better have control, especially if you get a lot of power. You better have control. It's an amazing feeling. And the reason that the GNX existed was Buick was phasing out rear-wheel drive cars. They only had the Grand National. All of GM only had the Grand National, I believe, the Grand National and the Corvette. Correct me, car guys, if they had more back in 1987. But certainly after 87, all they had was the Corvette. And they decided to go out in an absolute blaze of glory. See, it was this weird interstitial period in between the muscle cars of the 60s and 70s and the computerized cars of the nows. Like in between that time, this little car was created, and it seems like it was almost out of time, out of place. How could this car actually exist? And they went so far. They went and they worked with ASC McLaren. Yes, the same McLaren who makes the McLaren F1, the same McLaren who makes all the great race cars, Senna and all that. And they made 547 of these absolute beasts. And they only sold them to dealers who would put markups, but still the sticker price was $29,000, which is $80,000 in today's money, which is a lot until you remember that it was faster than the Ferrari F40, which was $399,000, $1.1 million in today's money. For under $100K, you could go faster than $1 million car. So,
for under $50K, I mean $29,000. I mean that's back, I guess 87. I think it came out. 29,000. That was a lot of money, but compared to the McLaren, or compared to the Ferrari, which was way faster, which was 400 and some. What do you say? 300 some thousand. I'm getting the numbers mixed up, but it was a lot of bang for your buck. It was more bang for your buck.
Where is this all going? Where does this all have
Another comparison?
Well, first, he also says a black Grand National. This is not a coincidence. Now listen, some people in the comments, Sky, all Grand Nationals were black. False. Okay, all Grand Nationals after 1984 were black, but certainly all GNXs were black. All right, so all he ever wanted was this car, this GNX. So what does this mean? What is all the things? The whole time I've been talking about the car, I could almost also sort of kind of was talking about Kendrick Lamar. Not for nothing, too. When you think of a big, powerful car, what do you think of that engine, right? You think of a V12, maybe a V10, at the very, very limits, a V8. No. Buick Grand National.
V6.
That's a V6. Only 6 little pistons there making all that power. You know, you don't have to be big to be powerful. You can be a little guy and have the whole world at your feet. So let's summarize the Buick GNX in the context of Kendrick Lamar. The Buick Grand National GNX is shocking black excellence from 1987, the year of Kendrick's birth, and only 1987. Shocking black excellence from 1987 that could be seen as the last gasp of a great American art that certainly can be appreciated by anyone because of its rarity and its power, but is better.
All right, so two things. I love this breakdown so far. I hadn't seen the whole video. It's an hour and 29 minutes, an hour and 30 minutes, hour and a half. And it's remarkable that we still have artists like Kendrick Lamar who is willing to put in the work to make the youth think. because that's the whole point of me making this video right now. Kendrick Lamar, yeah, he did his thing with Drake. He defeated the supervillain. Okay, we won't go into supervillain, the era of the supervillain. I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole because I got Trumpsters watching my videos, so I won't go down the era of the supervillain. But he defeated the number one supervillain in hip hop, in the opinions of a lot of people now. Now that you see who Drake really is, and I'm not taking shots at Drake. Drake is he's an awesome MC, but Drake, when you have that responsibility, when you have a responsibility of educating a whole generation or generations of youth, you got to take that serious. And a lot of things, how Drake was moving, Kendrick obviously didn't approve of it. And a lot of people now don't approve of it. But even though, anyways, let me get back to this. But my main point is, I love the fact that Kendrick has laced not only this album, but now looking back at it, he's laced all of his bodies of work with all these beautiful, just well written, well thought out innuendos and just integrity and research. His work, his blood is in his music. That's what I like.
Best appreciated by those with
That's the
taste
stuff we like.
and discernment in the art. I just described a Grand National, and I just described Kendrick Lamar. Shocking black excellence from 1987 that can be seen as the last gasp of great American art, that can be appreciated by anybody because of its rarity and power, but is best appreciated by those with taste and discernment in the art. He is the GNX. Now let's also not forget, this is not nothing. He's not just throwing these things out there. I don't care how many times he says he's just making this to be felt. It has meaning. Cars have meaning, especially in West Coast rap. Okay? Cars in East Coast rap do not. Sometimes they do. Okay, fine. Packing it back in the back of the act, Big Punisher, and obviously, Lexuses and all that.
I'm gonna give him some pushback there now. The East Coast, you got a car driving by with the booming system. That's LL Cool J. Me and my Jeep. That's somebody y'all wouldn't even know. The younger people. Nine. Remember the rapper Nine? I think it was called Me and My Jeep. I think it was. But you got a lot of rappers on the East Coast that made songs about cars. I can't think of any right now because I'm going off the top of my head. But there's plenty of them out there. I don't want to say R. Kelly. You remind me of my Jeep. I don't want to say that, but he's from Chicago. That's Midwest anyway. So anyways, let me get back to it. I'll think of something else.
Fine. But really, LA's car culture, New York is not. And when you study hip-hop, there's a long, nice history of General Motors car culture. If I were to ask you, give me one lyric that defines West Coast rap, you tell me in the comments. You tell me in the comments, and you might be betraying your age. But I can tell you, somebody who has been around for a long time and listened to a lot of rap music, the definitive line in rap history when it comes to gangster rap is the following: cruising down the street in my 6'4". That's it. That's the essence. Okay, fine. If some of you put 6 a.m. police at my door, fine. You get credit too. You can also give it to Ice-T. But when we're talking about the beginnings, okay?
Cruising down the street in my 6'4"
by Eazy-E. Cruising down the street in my 6'4". If you've never read Original Gangsters, it's a very nice book. It's about the birth of West Coast rap. There's a funny scene here. Ice Cube actually wrote the... ironically, I was going to do an Ice Cube video today, and then Kendrick dropped out of nowhere. Disrespectful. But anyways, so Ice Cube wrote these lyrics, and they were trying to give them to an East Coast group, right? Like they were trying to give the song "Boys in the Hood" to homeboys only, and homeboys only were like, "What is this?" And I'm going to quote Ice Cube. They was like, "What are you talking about? What's a 6'4"? And I can tell you, growing up, I was like, "What is a 6'4"? What?"
Yeah, for a lot of us on that wasn't on the West Coast, when we heard that lyric, cruising down the street in my 6'4", and then that's just one of 100 lyrics that include the word 6'4" or the number. It took me maybe a second to realize what they were talking about, but once we got it, everything was 6'4". People in South Carolina back in the early 90s had 6'4" Impalas. Okay, If you didn't know what that was, young kids, if y'all don't know what that is, that's a 64 Chevy Impala. 1964 Chevy
It is
Impala.
a 6.4. Now, you might know what a 6.4 is. You probably do. Do you know why you know what a 6.4 is? You know what a 6.4 is because of NWA, because of Eazy-E, because of rap music. It is a 64 Chevrolet Impala. A great car to do low riding in. Matter of fact, Chevrolet Impalas happen to have a weird trait of their construction where they had a kind of X in the middle, which is what made them so good for hydraulics, for lifting and lowering. But not just, Chevelles, okay? We're talking El Caminos, okay? There's a whole series of Chevrolet cars that are all tied into West Coast rap. So I think taking a Buick, different generation. It's not a 64, it's an 87. You understand what I'm saying? It's not Generation X. It's not. It is not the 70s. It is not the 80s. It is not someone who was on the streets during the Ronald Reagan era. It was somebody who was born in the Ronald Reagan era.
Okay. I'm going to leave it right here. If you guys want to watch the rest of this, I just played about 10 minutes of it. Go to Professor Sky's record review. And I'll leave it at this. I'll leave you guys with this. I think the comparison to the Grand National GNX was excellent. I did not know all these things until I got it from Professor Sky. But like I said, Kendrick Lamar, he's like taking this subliminal messages to a different level. And this is absolutely 100% great for the younger hip hop heads out there. And not only hip hop heads, but anybody who just like hip hop music. You don't have to be a head, but if you like hip hop music and you realize that, he has little woven in messages in his songs, you're going to start decoding these messages, and that's causing you to think. That's what we're not doing these days. We're not thinking enough, ladies and gentlemen. We're just not using our brains enough. And God forbid, you may pick up a book. If you do pick up a book, I'm an excellent writer when it comes to subliminal messages. I have 4 novels, and I write just like Nas raps, or Kendrick, or J. Cole, because these guys, well, not the younger guys, but Nas, Rakim, G-Rap, all of these guys, Andre 3000, they taught me how to write. So I write stories now, books, the same way they rap, except without the rhyming. Anyways, you can check my books out on Amazon. Just Google my name, Anthony L. Kelly, 1 E in Kelly, and hey, highlight the L. Anyways, till next time, y'all be safe. Hit that like, subscribe, share, comment. This is Anthony L. Kelly. I'm out.